Welcome to The Political Insider. And this episode is brought to us with the compliments of our friends at Trade Nation. They are the platform where you can trade currencies, interest rates, commodities, everything in a fast moving world. If you want to trade, go and visit tradenation.co.za. Read those terms and conditions. They're part of an international trading company. They can't be too bad. They sponsor Aston Villa and they're doing quite well in the English Premiership. So perhaps if you want to trade, try out Trade Nation. But thank you for joining us on the Political Insider. And let's kick off at the Madlanga Commission. And the reason we want to talk about that is that this has become very, very, very interesting. And we are now getting to the kind of testimony that is breaking open this whole relationship between criminal syndicates, police, even politicians. So we spoke yesterday about Suleiman Karim, and his testimony continued, sort of. It got off to yet another rocky start when Suleiman Karim's team of 5 high-powered attorneys and lawyers began the day by insulting Justice Madlanga. Now, Justice Madlanga is a very calm, measured guy. But boy, did he go absolutely crazy when the advocate for representing Karim, Advocate Bana, inferred that Karim will not get a fair hearing at the Madlanga Commission. Basically, you're calling Madlanga a crooked judge. And Justice Madlanga got so angry that they literally needed to have a break, as he demanded an apology which was not forthcoming. Basically, he said, well, I'll only accept your apology, afterwards, if I'm happy with the outcome. Now, I don't imagine, South Africa has got some dodgy judges, but this is not one of them. We're talking about a constitutional court judge here. This guy's got an impeccable track record, and to be called a crook by an advocate representing a proper crook is really very hard to take, and needless to say, it got the treatment it deserved. Right, so what made the Karim testimony so important was that for the first time we saw links between all of these crime syndicates as well as those dodgy tenders that we know so much about by now. And evidence leader Matthew Chaskalson is very good at what he does. Now, there's this crazy arrangement that had seemingly been in place whereby Kat Matlala was going to send money to Maumela. This is now the proceeds of money from that SAPS tender as well as other business that they were doing together. But they were using Karim as a middleman. In other words, they didn't want the money to flow from Matlala directly to Maumela. And Karim was the middle guy. Now, we have heard this term businessmen many times used for these tenderpreneurs. They are not businessmen. These are thieves. And it was proven by Chaskalson yesterday when Karim was at great lengths to explain how he was going to get 10 million into his account and he was going to pass it on to Maumela, only to be pointed out that in fact the team of Karim had actually overpaid Maumela by 1.4 million rand. Now, these are people once, as I said, call themselves businessmen. And Chaskalson said it best. He says to Karim, you don't strike me as a sleepy businessman. Have you managed to lose 2 million rand that should be in your bank account before? Has anyone made a payment of 1 million rand in one payment out of your account without you noticing? Karim replied, no, not to my knowledge. But yeah, you've got the evidence leader showing that this was hardly a business. This was a little criminal enterprise, and Karim had very little control over it. They were talking about millions of rand like we would talk about hundreds of rand, right? And it just goes to show that these syndicates were getting deals all over the show. hundreds of millions of rand that they were not even checking that the amounts that were flowing were remotely correct. In this case, you've paid you meant to pass on 10 million rand, and you passed on over 11 million rand. Plus, there was another million rand payment that was paid that nobody really could track as to why. Now, why did this actually happen? Why wouldn't Matlala basically just pay the money to Maumela? You would have thought, I owe you 10 million rand, here's your 10 million rand. Why does it have to go in the circuitous route, as Justice Madlanga called it? Well, quite simply, you are trying to wash the money. You are trying to de-link the money that's coming from point A and going to point B. So what do? You introduce point C. And the money would go to Karim, and he would pay it in small increments. 1 million here, 1 million there, 800,000, 500,000, a whole lot of payments to a whole lot of different accounts from a whole lot of different companies, and it all looks like it could possibly be business. It goes from a construction company that Karim owns to an investment company that Matlala owns, or a security company that he owns. And obviously, this is to try and throw the authorities off the scent, because obviously tax isn't being paid on this, and to sort of make it look like it's being paid for services that aren't really, genuine services. And it all links for once back to the person, he who cannot be named, and that is Morgan Maumela, Hangwani Morgan Maumela, the on-again, off-again nephew of the president, who he knows but he doesn't know, or he doesn't know but he knows. Oh yes, sorry, I did walk into his house once, but that was only because his mother was in a robe. I mean, the excuses were as bad as Karim's. But anyway, right now, by Karim's testimony, Maumela has been dragged into this, and we are starting to get a better sight of the fact that there may be, as has mentioned before, big five syndicates, but we've started to see how closely they cooperated. The one would have a particular in there, and they would get a big contract, and it would be expedited through this whole gang of thieves. And really, the Karim testimony is going to put a lot of people in jail, and you can see why Karim and his legal team have tried so hard not to get Karim to sit on the stand, because he's got two choices. He can either lie to the commission, which in itself is just a very simple, you lie to the commission, you are guilty of perjury, you go to jail. Or you tell the truth and it starts showing all these things. So he's sort of trying that middle road where he sort of gives them the shortest possible answer, but these evidence leaders and the judges that sit on the panel are skilled, and they are tearing these people apart. Chaskelson also provided an infographic, which wasn't discussed because Karim has reverted this to his legal team. And the infographic provided a summary of payments from municipalities in the area in which Suleiman Karim is the ANC treasurer, and this is in the Northwest provinces. And these are payments made to companies owned by Karim, and it amounts to more than 300 million rand. So in one of South Africa's poorest provinces, Mr. Karim was managing 300 million rands worth of business. I would love to see the kind of services he was delivering, whether it was 300 million rands worth of value that he was returning to these municipalities in the Northwest. If he did, he's a businessman. If he's getting overpaid, or if he's not providing the services at all, then it is just corruption, right? And he had to see, he said the reason, this was sort of the craziest moment, when he was asked about being the middleman for this transfer of money between Matlala and Maumela, and why he didn't question, why don't these two just pay each other? If they owe each other, why do they need you? He said, well, actually, he was scared because he had heard that between Maumela and Matlala, they had murdered people with their little joint venture that they had at the Tembisa hospital. So he was physically scared. This is a guy who's got his own security company, who walks around with security guards, and he comes to a commission with 5 attorneys. And he was scared. Well, maybe he should have thought of Babita Deokaran, who had no protection whatsoever, and paid the ultimate price. So this is what we're dealing with. On a side note, the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee has turned into a joke. You really have political parties playing games. They are getting, second-hand testimony. Embarrassing moment where they had this Hilda Sentamula as a general in the police force, the one who accepted a Brazilian butt lift from Matlala, even though she claimed to not really know him. And then you got parties accusing each other of playing politics. This time it was the ANC and the EFF accusing each other of playing politics. The parliamentary meeting, they might as well scrap it now, because it looks like the Madlanga Commission is the real deal. This is what should have happened in the Zondo Commission but didn't. It is gripping stuff, and it's going to yield what we hoped, and that is that this whole criminal syndicate thing is going to be bust wide open, or it has been bust wide open already. And the only way to go from here is to court. Court cases, high profile cases that the state cannot afford to lose. Going to be fascinating. Let's talk about South Africa's next Eskom. The next thing that could really cause massive damage to South Africa. And it's a time bomb that is busy ticking, and its name is the Road Accident Fund. We have discussed the Road Accident Fund before, but my word, this is now a problem that this is a broken pipe that nobody wants to fix, and the road is going to crack wide open. There is mounting debt, there's mismanagement and corruption, and it could cost you and me, the taxpayer, directly, a minimum of 400 billion rand. Okay? That is enormous. It's a problem that the country just will not deal with it. You would imagine if you've got a problem in a business, especially a state entity, hey, at the end of the day, the poor old taxpayer sucker, you and I, are going to pay the bill. But if you're put in charge, you could at least understand what the quantum is of your financial problem. But the Road Accident Fund is not even trying to do that, and the government isn't even trying to put pressure on them. And nobody seems to agree what the size of the financial hole that the Road Accident Fund is in. They will not agree how big the number is. If this was a listed company, an insurance company or a bank, solvency rules would require that they understand their liabilities. But this is the Road Accident Fund, and this is run by the comrades and the deployed cadres. What we do know for sure, the only thing that we do know for sure is, as we sit right now, the Road Accident Fund has current liabilities, just what they owe right now in stuff that's been realized. They owe 100 billion rand. But there are thousands of cases that are still pending where they're going to have to pay out. How does the Road Accident Fund work? Let's just go there. You contribute to the Road Accident Fund every time you put fuel in your vehicle. A portion of it goes to the Road Accident Fund. It's meant to cover people who get hurt in road accidents, not the driver, but the innocent bystander. It's always been there, and it falls into the category of business that the state loves to run and the comrades love to steal from. Why? Because a pot is filled with money, our money, taxpayer money, fuel user money, and then they pay it out against claims that are made. So a pedestrian that gets knocked over, Road Accident Fund, they go, there's a legal process, Road Accident Fund says, here's your R1 million, or whatever the number is. Right? So it's a kind of a discretionary payout. It's a little bit like, that Father Christmas thing. If you get a car, everyone gets a car. It's one of those sort of nice things. So what ends up happening is it lends itself to crime and corruption. It's been a problem for 40 years. This predates the new South Africa, but nobody will get a handle on it. At least Action SA's MP, Alan Beasley, has spearheaded attempts to demand accountability by the Road Accident Fund, because we're getting nothing out of the Transport Ministry. And he's trying to get answers from the Special Investigative Unit as to where the case stands against the former CEO of the Road Accident Fund, Collins Letsoalo. Collins Letsoalo is a character. Not a good one, a bad one. There's another commission waiting for him. He was CEO from 2020 to 2025, and he can be best described as a sociopathic CEO. Right, I don't want to make you completely despondent, but listen to some of this because it's important that we all know. He earned a salary of 6 million rand per year, plus he was paid out every year a 40% performance bonus. What performance? The guy was useless. The Road Accident Fund is a bigger mess now than when he started, but yet he was paid out a 40% performance bonus by our Ministry of Transport every year, right? And it's in worse shape than it's ever been. So this chap walked away with 10 million rand in a year. I suppose we should be asking questions of the Road Accident Fund board, who are also very well remunerated for their service. But yet, they did nothing about these crazy salaries, and they issued no disclaimer about the adverse opinions for 5 consecutive years. So the information was coming out that there's a problem here, and the board, with any corporate governance or king code or whatever it is, should be saying, we have to acknowledge that there's a problem here, and they did nothing. Now, let's not forget that our brilliant Mr. Letsoalo snubbed Parliament. He was meant to appear before Parliament and chose not to. He didn't do a thing. He just didn't pitch up. He defied a subpoena. A subpoena is a legal document. Come, you better be here or else you will go to jail, except the jail part, right? He was subpoenaed to appear before SCOPA, that is the Special Committee on Public Accounts, which is headed by Razi Mzansi's Songezo Zibi, has done a very good job. So now he subpoenas the guy to appear before SCOPA, but nothing. And where's the police? Well, we know from the Madlanga Commission where they are. This guy should be in jail. Now, the ANC's Transport Minister, Barbara Creecy, did the ANC thing of placing Letsoalo on special leave. Don't you love special leave? I wish I could be sent on special leave. You earn your salary, you do no work, you watch Netflix. And she asked the president to expand the scope of the investigation into the Road Accident Fund. I suppose that would be like asking Waldo, my Labrador, to do calculus. The president never makes a decision on things like this. What did she want the SIU, the Special Investigative Unit, to investigate? He signed a 79 million rand office lease. 79 million rand, he signed it. A 200-bed hospital was forced to close in May 2025 after the Road Accident Fund failed to pay the outstanding debt to the hospital of 300 million rand. A whistleblower submitted a complaint to the Road Accident Fund board accusing senior executives of manipulating the procurement process. What did they do? The procurement process says, invoice, and then the invoice gets submitted. Instead, they were splitting invoices. So if the invoice was for 1 million rand, they'd end up with 3 invoices for 3,333,000 rand. And that way, it fell below the limits, and it just sort of went through the payment system. Under Letsoalo's watch, the Road Accident Fund had a 4 million rand staff party, which included 40,000 rand spent on executives' drinks. I love a good party as much as the rest of them. When you're bankrupt, those parties have to, perhaps you should have the Fanta grape instead. The Road Accident Fund has not appointed a chief claims officer for more than 2 years, despite backlogs in claims. And instead of accepting the Auditor General's reports, they litigated against the Auditor General for 2 years. The Road Accident Fund has accumulated more than 15 billion rand in default judgments. That's where they've been proven to be bad at their job. They've got 430,000 outstanding claims, and the value of these claims has increased by 70%, and the legal fees has quadrupled. The Road Accident Fund is technically insolvent. They receive 50 billion rand a year. Their overheads are 7 billion, and according to their books, they pay out 43 billion. And that sounds fine. There's 50. Got 50, paid out 7 and 43, there's your 50. But there's all these other debts. And there's unknown class of claims that they just rejected that are going to be subject to a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, and the judgment will come out against them. And this could see thousands of claims reinstated. This is where, when they were running out of money, they just dismissed all the other claims. They used to handle 250,000 claims a year. They now handle 70,000. So what are the solutions? Well, Songezo Zibi has suggested they could appoint a panel of arbitrators to receive cases where parties can't settle, and independent, and the arbitrators can make a decision, and now they can solve these cases. Instead, they use a system where an independent medical panel, where two sets of medical experts have to assess the claims, instead of establishing an independent medical panel to do it. They should also tackle the legal profession, which has seen law firms being set up only to take money from the Road Accident Fund. And this obviously opens the door to corruption. Quite simply, if I know that the Road Accident Fund is there, I'm a Road Accident Fund lawyer, I get friendly with somebody on the inside, and it turns out all my cases get settled. Not hard to work out, and I make a big fat commission on the side. It is frustrating, it's dangerous, and at some point South Africa is going to have to deal with the Road Accident Fund. That is all we have time for on Political Insider. Please, if you're interested in trading, check out Trade Nation. They could be worth looking if you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, first go and study a little bit. And we'll see you again on the Political Insider. Thanks for joining us today.